All right, here we go. Hurricane Melissa pushing 2025 hurricane season in the Atlantic into the record books. 175-mile-per-hour winds. We just got the 2 o'clock advisory a couple minutes ago. It's incredible, and it continues to lose pressure and means it's continuing to intensify. How low is it going to get? We'll show you that. Look at the forecast track. That's going to get an update here at about 5 o'clock, but this is what we're going with right now over Jamaica, over Cuba, the southeastern Bahamas, maybe clip into the Turks and Caicos, and then it's got its sight sets for Bermuda. That's going to be later in the period, most likely late Thursday and the early part of Friday. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Bob Van Dillen. This is the America's Weather Center. We're your Hurricane HQ. We've been following this. Got a brand new update, so let's get right to it. We've got Bryan Norcross right on board right now. And Bryan, right off the bat, this pressure continues to drop. The intensity is starting to, do you think we're going to get below 900 millibars? I mean, I don't see any signs of an IO replacement at all.
Well, the fact that it's wobbling a little bit is a little bit of a sign, and the fact that we do see some moat, it's called, dry area around the eye is another little sign, but not any big signs, certainly. We don't see any change in the pressure or maximum winds coming into play outside of the eye. So maybe not. This may just continue to intensify. So a couple things have happened. One is, as it's moved a little bit south down in here, it's gotten over a very, very warm pool of water. And it's these small features that can make it kind of perk up suddenly, and then it can actually lose a little intensity just a bit. So it's always a little bit of plus or minus. So that pressure right now, 906 millibars, that's getting into the top 10 ever measured pressures. That's lower than Hurricane Maria was at its peak down near Dominica, and 175-mile-an-hour winds. So absolutely incredible. Just west-northwest, right on track at 3 miles an hour. So it's actually stirring up some cooler water. There's not much cool water to stir up, but such that it is doing that, moving that slowly. So it's all, like you say, for the record books, Bob. There you see the incredible hurricane, Mother Nature's most magnificent and most dangerous storm. And if you had to put some good news on this, is that it's not very big. And in the core of it, this part right here, is relatively small. So we get to talking about how far out the winds are going to extend and what part of the island you're going to get the strong winds. It's not the whole island, as we were kind of afraid of earlier when we thought it might take a more northerly track before it turned north. And then the whole island would have gotten kind of raked with maybe not the strongest winds, but very, very strong winds in here. But it's taken this more southerly track, which has allowed it to get stronger farther away from land, over the pools of warmer water, and but also not have so long a strong impact on the island. All right, here's the radar out of Kingston, the Meteorological Service in Jamaica. And if you see what I mean here, Bob, see the kind of green ring that you can kind of make out around the eye at times? That's a moat, and sometimes that's an indication that this next band out will become to try and be an eye wall as opposed to just being a band. But every time we think that maybe that's happening, then that goes away. So no indication based on what the hurricane hunters have found and what they found with the radar on the NOAA research planes, no sign of a peak in wind outside of the immediate eye. All right, so here's the expectation in terms of the forecast. There, first of all, is how far out the winds extend. So some tropical storm force winds, the yellow means 40 miles per hour plus, so some tropical storm force winds over Jamaica now. These are the hurricane force gusts, and this you can just barely make it out under the icon. Those are sustained hurricane force winds. So you see it's relatively small compared to the island. I mean, this is a very thankful kind of thing. Now, the question is, could it go through what's called an eye wall replacement cycle, where that bigger eye wall forms and the storm generally just gets bigger? Everything gets bigger before it gets up to the landfall up in here. Well, it could, but it's running out of time because it is forecast to make landfall about 9 a.m. in the morning. So that's 18 hours or so from now, 19 hours from now. So that's not a lot of time. In fact, it may be too little time for it to do it in that that distance there. Okay, so here's the forecast. By this evening, they're forecasting 165. Well, it's already 175. This was the forecast back before when it was 165 at 11. So they updated at 5 o'clock, and we'll see what the thinking is. I mean, generally, they don't maintain the super strong, just can't maintain it. It's like a top spinning. It always runs into something. There's some little reason that it starts kind of wobbling around. Usually that happens. So we'll see what their forecast is. In any case, incredible Category 5 hurricane this evening. There you see the hurricane force gusts right there. All right, then overnight tonight, the winds increase on Jamaica. This is near landfall. Now, this is nominally 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. local time there on Jamaica. There you see where the hurricane force gusts extend out in this analysis forecast by the Hurricane Center, close to the Kingston metropolitan area, but odds are their gusts there are going to be in the 60-mile-an-hour range or something like that. But so the threat in Kingston doesn't look like it's going to be from the wind. It looks like it's going to be from the rain on the mountains coming down through the city, and also to some degree from the storm surge, but they're not going to get the peak storm surge. They're not going to get the 13-foot storm surge there, but they will get a storm surge with a slow-moving storm pushing water against the coast for such a long period of time. But this is where the destruction is going to be, and take this circle right there and then translate that across the island. That's where the real corridor is going to be, that they're not going to be able to build anything really, and the trees are not going to stand, and it'll be a swath across Jamaica that I imagine we'll be able to see from the satellite, where the trees have been knocked down and the damage is just massive in that swath, not to mention what goes on here on the southern coast, and not to mention the flooding from the tremendous rain coming down from the mountains. Then it moves on, and so that by Tuesday evening, it's past, and then the question is, what can be done, what roads are open, and so forth, to figure out what happened. So you can see this city here, Mandeville. Mandeville is about 2,000 feet up in the mountains. It's the only significant city in Jamaica that is not right at the coast. And it's a good sized city, and it's right in the path of this thing at 2,000 feet. Now, a little while ago, the hurricane hunters measured the wind at 1,000 feet. Remember, the wind gets stronger as you go higher. So at 1,000 feet, they measured it over 240 miles per hour. So very, 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 very concerned about wind, people staying safe from the wind in Mandeville. And then along this coast here, you have a town called Black River, and you have a kind of a resort area called Treasure Beach. They're all right in the way of where this storm surge is forecast to occur. It's a very high confidence forecast now. There is just no chance this core of this is going to come over and hit Jamaica. There you have the NHC, European, and Google models. Everybody agrees that's what's going to happen. Even if you look at the width of the Google model, you see the concentration is all right here near the center. These are outliers over here, very, very, very low odds. So this is where the destruction is going to be from the wind, but the rain is everywhere across the island. And then you have on the south coast the storm surge. Like I said, over here you see Black River is going to be very close to the center, but right down the coast from Black River, right down in here, is Treasure Beach, which is sort of the resort area down there. And if something like this works out, that's going to be really, really bad. I hope everybody is away from the water for this, because this is where the 13-foot forecast of storm surge is going to be. And as you go farther west, the storm surge in general will be less, except that every time you have a bay like this, the water gets pushed in there and then can't get out. And same thing in Kingston Harbor. So it gets elevated in the bays compared to what it is on a flat coast, where the water can go up and kind of spread out and have room to maneuver, so to speak. So you get just more water piled up in the bays. There's another one right there, and you can see them all along this kind of scalloped southern coast of Jamaica. And then the rain, you can see where the corridor is, that the forecast is right in here for the track of the storm up that way. So the incredible rain, that's Mandeville kind of right in there, and we're up in the multiple feet of rain there. So that's why you have on the west side of it there, you have this kind of area of rain here, and then the wind comes around like this, and you have another area where that moisture goes around and hits the mountains. And then over here, these are the tallest mountains over here outside of Kingston. There you see. So Kingston kind of sits kind of in a valley in here. Metropolitan Kingston is over in here. So all this water that falls in these mountains here has to drain down this way. So this is going to be the threat in Kingston. And the storm surge, such as it is going to want to push the Caribbean water up into the harbor while there's other waters trying to come out the harbor. So this is all a recipe for significant flooding all along the coast there from the two kinds of water coming different directions. Then the storm goes over Cuba and into the southeastern Bahamas, Turks and Caicos. So from the central Bahamas south, they have everybody on alert to prepare. And then on off to Bermuda. Bermuda just happens to be once again in the center of the cone. We'll see, in order to get the worst of a storm in Bermuda, you have to get really unlucky because Bermuda is so small and the worst of the storm is small. But the storm is going to be much bigger in size, so it will be unusual for Bermuda not to feel it. But whether they get the absolute worst of it, at that time, forecast to be an 85 or 90 mile an hour category 1, so a different kind of storm by that time, and then moving on out to sea. So, Bob, this is going to be starting late tonight, before sunrise tomorrow, and then through the day tomorrow. This is going to be just horrendous in this whole corridor, maybe taking up half of Jamaica when you take it all into account. And then you have and that doesn't really count the issue of the water coming down the hill, because that's going to take time. That's not even going to necessarily happen all at the same time that the hurricane happens, because you rain up on the mountain and it has to make its way down, and then it fills the rivers and so forth. So this is going to be an extended, difficult, or horrendous period for parts of Jamaica. I think communities are going to be cut off. Some communities might be destroyed by this, either by the storm surge or by the wind. Bob?
Yeah, if you equate it to a tornado, it's like a 20 to 30 mile wide EF4 tornado initially coming in. You're talking about winds of 175 and they go out, 30 miles out. I know it goes down, but that's huge, Brian. It's going to be wind, it's going to be rain, it's going to be
remember, the tornado winds. Remember, tornado winds are gusts, or what we call gusts in hurricanes. Mm-hmm. So an EF5 tornado is 200 miles per hour, right? This is, if this comes in at 175 or 165, this is going to have gusts over 200 miles per hour. It's going to be, it's going to be an EF5 type tornado, but 20 or 30 miles across, and then an EF2 maybe 50 or 60 miles across. This is going to be just... think about it in those terms, and you go, that's unbelievable. Yeah. But that's what's going to happen here.
That's why I thought about that when you're talking about the wind swath that you're going to see with the tree damage when it comes in. It's going to be incredible. The before and after, I'm afraid to even look at it. Bryan Norcross, thank you very much. He's our Hurricane HQ. Nobody better in the business. Bryan, thank you. All right, coming up, we're going to show you where it goes from here. Bryan just pinpointed exactly what's going to happen for Jamaica, gave you the timing on it, show you the winds. It has some room to grow. It does. Hopefully it weakens before it comes in, but then it goes up towards Bermuda. So we've got that to worry about, and we've got East Coast rain that's been pounding in around Florida, the Carolinas, and Georgia. We've got the whole forecast for you guys coming up. We are Fox Weather, your Hurricane HQ, everybody, and we're going to be right back.